Hello, Steve White, Trickboy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I just wanted to comment on Meyer Bernett. Now, I've been watching his show for years. I always liked his show. When I was a kid, I sort of would always see movies where people would call into like those radio call-in shows that were talking about like mystery or murder or something like that. And I always wanted to find something like that. I never found anything like that in the real life. Until now, we have a lot of podcasts like that, and people talk about science fiction or horror and things like that. And Robert Meyer Bernett is one of my favourite science fiction Star Trek podcasters. He knows a lot about it, even though he does think Deep Space Nine is the best Star Trek. He also thinks Star Trek The Motion Picture is the best Star Trek film, so, you know. But one thing that keeps bothering me that he keeps saying, because he says, I get criticised and people say that I'm a racist or a bigot because I am friends with racists and bigots. And he seems to think that you can do this. He seems to think you can lay down with dogs and not get fleas. You can't sit with a white supremacist or a racist and not and participate in like their program and be friends with them and not condone that they actually believe that, you know, other races are inferior to them and that women are inferior. All these sort of things they believe. You can't, as far as human rights go, basic human rights, there is no negotiation around that. I mean, in like politics, yes, you can sit with people who are conservative and disagree with things like that, but basic human rights, if people don't believe in basic human rights, if they don't believe, Black Lives Matter, like literally, without going into explicit detail about what they're happy to see happen and allow, you can't sit with those people. And what I want to say to him is, you're part Jewish. Could you sit with a Yahtzee who literally said that, either the what didn't happen or it did and those people deserved it and your grandparents whatever should have been, could you actually sit there with that? Because you seem to be able to sit with misogynists and homophobes and transphobes and racists because none of that affects you, but could you sit with a neo Yahtzee and actually be happy because you share a common interest and forget about all your differences, which includes killing your ancestors and lobbying for that continue in the future, because that's what some of these people believe, that they need to continue to purify and all this sort of stuff. No, you can't. And if you can, there's something wrong with you. So the fact he keeps arguing this is because it's a position of white privilege to be able to say, well, that doesn't affect me, so I can turn a blind eye to it. Well, it still matters. And you just can't ignore it. Like I said, you can ignore little political differences and conservative, progressive, all that sort of stuff. But when you get to basic human rights and people who don't respect your human rights or the human rights of your friends and family members and want to actually negatively affect those things, you can't ignore that. That is the line that has been drawn and has to be drawn, and it's really the only line. Everything else you can be flexible about. But you can't negotiate on human rights. And a lot of those people don't believe in them. So that's sort of my issue with him and what I sort of want to say to him, because, he keeps saying, I've heard you say on his show so many times, what am I supposed to do? Just not like these people because of what they believe? I'm like, when they believe things like that, which I can't even say what they believe because it will kill my video, which it's not going to get shared around anyway. But, I don't want to even be seen to be repeating what these people actually say they believe and want to happen to society and to certain people and so forth. And these people may not be saying that actively around your face, but when they're saying it in their own time and then you sit down next to them and act like that doesn't matter, then you are condoning what they're doing. And I just can't fathom or can't tolerate this thing that he does where he acts like he doesn't know better. He doesn't actually know that that's what they're doing. And by sitting down with these people and being friends with them, basically says that they're good people and what they're doing is like acceptable. And it's just not. And people say, oh, fascist, censoring, all that sort of stuff, not being open-minded. But there's certain basic things that we just have to maintain. And that doesn't make me a social justice warrior who's screaming and complaining over every little thing. I'm talking about basic human rights, that all humans are equal, race, sex, gender, and they need to be treated equally under the law and in society. And if you don't believe that and you discriminate against some of those groups, then you can't be tolerated. You can't be let in the group. You can't be, sat down with and engaged with, because we're supporting what you're doing and condoning what you're doing, and it gives you permission to continue doing it and to hurt and kill people, basically. And we just can't do it. And people who turn a blind eye and act like that's not where that leads, that, allowing those people, to hold those beliefs and not be challenged and not have any consequences for living a lifestyle that promotes killing and destroying people's lives, it's just insanity. So I find it absolutely fascinating that some people find a way to normalize and rationalize and get around dealing with that, but you just can't. So feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. I doubt you reply to Michael. Robert Meyer Bernett. I doubt you would watch this, but that's why you can't be friends with these people, and you should know better.